You literally use them every single day, right? But I bet you probably haven't really thought about them structurally in, well, years. We're talking about nouns, the fundamental, basic building blocks of English. Today, we're going to demystify how they actually operate. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see nouns not just as, simple words, but as these dynamic, shape-shifting megastructures that totally dictate the flow of our language. Let's get into it.
So here's our zoom-out roadmap for today's journey. We'll start with the basic building blocks, move on to concrete, abstract, and uncountable types. Then we'll tackle the pluralization puzzle, unmask some nouns in disguise, and finally, end with the wild reality of mega-noun architecture.
All right, part 1. The basic building blocks.
Okay, we absolutely have to start at ground zero here. A noun is a word that names a person, place, thing, animal, or idea. I know, it sounds super basic, but think about it. Without these core identifiers, whether it's doctor, London, computer, shark, or even peace, we simply wouldn't know who or what we're talking about. They're the literal anchors of every single thought we communicate.
Now, our first major division splits common and proper nouns. So, while common nouns like river or day give general, uncapitalized names to things, proper nouns step in when we need something specific, an official name. Think Amazon River or Monday. Proper nouns absolutely demand the capital letter, no matter where they're hiding in a sentence, purely because they're pointing to a singular, specific identity.
Moving on to Section 2, concrete, abstract, and uncountable.
So our reality is kind of split in half by how we experience things, right? On one side, we have concrete nouns. These are things you can physically interact with using your 5 senses. You can smell the coffee. You can feel the rain. But on the flip side, we have abstract nouns. These are the ideas, the concepts, the emotions like happiness or freedom. They're incredibly real to us, but physically impossible to touch or see.
But here is where it gets a bit tricky. And frankly, I find this fascinating. Think about the word hair. Is it a countable object or is it an uncountable mass? Well, it completely depends on context. If you say, she has long hair, you're talking about an uncountable mass. You aren't sitting there counting individual strands, right? But if you scream, there is a hair in my soup, suddenly that exact same word shifts into a countable, singular object. Words like hair or room shift their entire structural identity based entirely on the context of your sentence. It's wild.
Section 3. The pluralization puzzle. We all know English is notorious for being pretty chaotic, but irregular plurals actually fall into 4 highly logical categories. You've got your vowel changes, where man becomes men. You have your Old English N endings, turning child into children. You've got base plurals that just stubbornly refuse to change at all, like 1 sheep, 10 sheep, same thing. And finally, those foreign origin words that hold on to their native rules, turning cactus into cacti. So it's a beautiful mess, but it's beautifully categorized.
Now, I want you to think about this one for a second. If you have more than one mother-in-law, what do you actually call them? Is it mother-in-laws? Mothers-in-law? How on earth do you pluralize a compound word?
So the secret sauce here is finding what we call the head noun. The head noun is the core word giving the primary meaning to the phrase. For hyphenated words, you pluralize that main noun, so it's mothers-in-law because mother is the core person. For spaced words, it's the exact same thing. Attorneys general. The attorney is the noun, general is just describing the type. But for sold compounds that are mashed into a single word, like toothbrushes, you generally just pluralize the very end. And then we have pluralia tantum, which literally translates to plural only. We're talking about words like scissors, trousers, and glasses. Because these tools and articles of clothing are made of 2 symmetrical parts, they physically cannot exist in the singular without sounding completely ridiculous. You'd never say, hey, hand me my scissor. No way. To count them, you actually have to bring in a helper phrase like a pair of.
All right, Section 4, nouns in disguise.
This process is called nominalization. It's essentially a grammatical magic trick where you take a verb like decide or an adjective like happy, you slap a suffix on the end, and boom, you have a brand new noun, decision or happiness. But hey, here is a practical takeaway for you. While academic writing absolutely loves nominalization, overusing it makes your writing incredibly dense. So instead of saying the implementation of the plan, which feels super heavy, it's often punchier to just say implementing the plan. Trust me on that one.
Now, verbs can also completely abandon their action-packed lifestyle to act as noun subjects. We call these gerunds and infinitives. Consider the phrase, swimming is excellent.
Now, swimming is technically an action, but here it's the subject of the sentence. It's acting exactly like a noun. The same goes for the infinitive to travel in to travel is to live. The verb has been entirely stripped of its verb status.
And it goes the other way too. Sometimes a noun acts like an adjective, which we call a noun adjutant. Think about it. If you have a store that sells shoes, it's a shoe store. The quirky hard and fast rule here is that noun adjutants are almost always singular. Even if that specific store sells 10,000 pairs of shoes, it is a shoe store, not a shoes store.
Section 5. The mega noun architecture.
We have zoomed all the way out now. At the advanced level, nouns aren't just single words anymore. They're massive syntactical structures. Take this famous sentence: the quick brown fox with the bushy tail jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox with the bushy tail is entirely one giant noun phrase acting as the subject. It's like a magnet. The single head noun is fox, and it just scoops up all its modifiers, the adjectives, the articles, the prepositional phrases into one massive block that simply jumps over a dog.
And if a phrase wasn't enough, how about an entire clause? A dependent clause, complete with its very own subject and its very own verb, can disguise itself perfectly as a single noun entity. What he said acts as the subject of the sentence surprised me. Where she lives acts as the direct object of I don't know. They can even act as the object of a preposition, like I'm thinking about what we should have for dinner. It is absolutely mind-blowing to realize that a whole sentence can shrink down in function to act as just one single grammatical unit.
So look at how far we've come. We've gone from the basic childhood definitions of people, places, and things to pluralization puzzles, shape-shifting gerunds, and massive architectural clauses. A noun is just so much more than a naming word. It is the absolute structural center of gravity for our communication. So now that you know a noun can be anything from a single abstract idea to a massive, shape-shifting dependent clause, how are you going to build your next sentence?